Hello, my name is Dr. Jane Frances Abu. I am your facilitator for this week. This is the first lecture in this course. This lecture focuses on various definitions of science, branches of science, aims of science, and differences between science and non-science disciplines. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to outline at least 3 ways of defining science, identify the areas of knowledge which qualify to be science, state briefly the purpose of science. What comes to your mind when the word science is mentioned? Is it chemistry, physics, biology, or mathematics? The word science is derived from the Latin word scientia, which means knowledge. On the simplest level, science has been defined as the knowledge of the world of nature. This definition, however, does not exhaust the full meaning of science, so let us attempt other perspectives of science. Science can be defined as a body of knowledge. It can also be defined as a method for acquiring knowledge or studying and understanding the world. It can also be viewed as an institution. So let us try to understand it one after the other. Science as a body of knowledge. What does the word body tell you? The bodies of knowledge generally regarded as science include chemistry, for example, biology, physics, mathematics, pharmacy, medicine, etc. These bodies of knowledge differ from other forms of knowledge such as religion or art, and they differ in both content and form. You are going to understand these differences in subsequent unit. Science as a method of acquiring knowledge. What does this mean? Science has well-known procedures for obtaining knowledge. Here we talk about 2 branches of science, which are empirical and formal sciences. And these branches of science make use of what is called scientific method. Various concepts of scientific method include observation, problem hypothesis formation, experimentation, conclusion, and theory formation. In addition, formal science utilizes concepts, rules, and theories and expresses them in quantitative and statistical manner. You will understand the meaning of empirical concepts, rules, and theories before the end of this course. So, anybody that uses the scientific method or the method of formal sciences to obtain knowledge is said to be involved in science. Science as an institution. What do we mean by that? Science can be viewed as an institution which comprises millions of experts. These experts engage in the study and development of human knowledge. The experts or scientists can be found in various research and educational institutions, industries, hospitals, companies, and so on. So, the cooperation and interaction among them make the development of science possible and reliable. You have learned the various meanings of science. In this section, you will learn other ways of grouping scientific disciplines or bodies of knowledge. This will enable you to identify the areas of knowledge which qualify to be called science. Formal science, for example, includes mathematics, logic, theoretical physics, statistics, etc. Formal science have a formal and deductive character. Science is therefore said to be formal if its content, arguments, and procedures obey certain rules. The results and conclusions of such sciences are valid and authentic only if they conform to those rules. For example, in mathematics, there are rules of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and divisions. There are also rules for solving certain equations, problems, and theories. For example, if you're given a mathematical problem that have the following symbols: addition, division, multiplication, and so on, how would you go about it? The rule says that bracket is solved first, followed by of, then division, addition, and subtraction. The concept used for remembering this rule is known as BODMAS. In BODMAS, B stands for bracket, O stands for of, D stands for division, M stands for multiplication, A stands for addition, S stands for subtraction. The result and conclusion of the problem will therefore be valid and authentic only if the rule of BODMAS is followed. Let us also take a look at another form of science, which is empirical science. Empirical sciences, on the other hand, include physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, botany, zoology, and so on. These sciences study objects and phenomena which can be observed through any of the senses and which can be tested with instruments such as telescope, microscope, ruler, tapes, scales, structured interview scales, etc. In other words, anything that cannot be observed with the sense of sight, touch, hearing, taste, and smell, or with instruments such as ruler, telescope, etc., is outside science. Can you think of examples of any sense of perception or non-sense perception objects? Okay, while you ponder on that, let us move on. Let us try to identify some sense perception objects. Sense perception objects, which are the object of empirical science, include the human body, bodies of other animals such as dog, cow, goat, chicken, as well as natural objects such as the weather, disease, plant, or insects. These can be observed with the senses or measured with instruments because they are material things. For example, we can see a cow walking on the road, perceive the odor of its dropping, touch its hairy body, and so on. Thus, empirical scientists observe and experiment in order to find out how these things originate, grow, or develop, and also how they function and relate to each other. They also try to find out the laws which govern their behavior. They are interested in regularities or law which enable them to understand or explain the objects or phenomenon under study. The knowledge derived in empirical science include inductive, generalization, law, and theories. The concepts are formulated in clearly defined statements, propositions, or in statistical equations or formula. Objects which cannot be perceived by the senses include values such as goodness or badness, rightness, virtue, beauty, holiness, and truth, and so on. If the following statement is made, for example, John is a good boy, do you think you can observe goodness with your senses or measure it with an instrument? It is not possible, so the study of goodness could be said to be outside empirical science. Science could also be grouped according to the class of objects they deal with. Physical sciences, for example, include disciplines such as physics, chemistry, geology, applied mathematics, astronomy, etc. These form of science deals with physical and inanimate objects such as rocks, rivers, mountains, etc. Biological sciences. Disciplines under these include biology, zoology, botany, and so on. They deal with living bodies such as human beings, animals, insects, plants, etc. Medical sciences. They include general medicine, anatomy, surgery, physiology, veterinary medicine. These disciplines deal with objects and problems that affect human and animal health. Pharmaceutical science include pharmaceutics, pharmaceutical chemistry, pharmacognosy, and so on. These disciplines are concerned with drugs and drug content of plants and other objects. Social sciences. The discipline listed here deal with society and social institutions. In spite of all this classification of science, there is a point that is worth noting. The differences between the disciplines are not absolute. The disciplines began to be systematically arranged in the late 19th century so as to avoid inconsistency and overlap. The differences between these disciplines arise as differences of viewpoint between scientists. In other words, the significant thing is not that chemistry differs significantly from physics, but that the chemist's view of the world differed from that of the physicist. It is good that you accept all disciplines as part of life and of living and of our curiosity about the world around us. To be realistic, however, most university departments or programs and professional bodies are based on well-defined and separate subjects. Presently, however, some integration of the science is making a comeback. For instance, we now have fields of study such as physical chemistry, biochemistry, and biophysics. Aims of science. Why do you think people involve themselves in scientific activities? Right from the dawn of history, man has tried to understand himself and the nature surrounds him. He has seen the world around him, which evidently has remained the same world, and yet is full of change, motion, and of variety. There are dawns and sunsets, births and death, the solid earth and ever restless seas. There are various kinds of things in the world, minerals, plants, humans, and so on. Thus, we can say that science aims at enabling us to explain the world around us. Also, it enables us to explain events and objects around us and how they originate, develop, operate, or function. It also helps us to predict how they will behave in future, and thus enables us to control the behavior of the things around us once we are able to develop appropriate instruments for such control. So science could be said to be theoretical. It also equips us with theoretical knowledge about the world. Such knowledge is usually summarized using concepts, laws, and theories, and this helps us to to express and synthesize our understanding of objects. Science also equips us with practical knowledge in terms of the various ways, mechanisms, and instruments which enables us to control objects and phenomena. Science is therefore not only a source of knowledge, it is also a source of power. Let us look at differences between science and non-science disciplines. Why do you think some areas are called non-science? Among those called non-science are religion, art, metaphysics, common sense, imagination, etc. Religion, for example, is concerned with worship of the supernatural. Science is therefore concerned with nature and natural phenomena as well as objects. In particular, religion could be said to be speculative. It is based on faith or dogma. The basic religious beliefs are sometimes questionable. In the field of study called rational religion or theology, the aim is to make religious belief reasonable without rejecting them. In other words, theology tries to confirm religious beliefs. Religion relies on the principle that the universe is governed by spiritual law. All the other non-sciences exhibit some of these attributes. Thus, non-sciences are said to be subjective, unverifiable, non-factual, non-objective, non-systematic, or non-quantifiable. Their study is often a matter of involving trial and error. Consequently, knowledge based on them does not enable us to explain, predict, and control phenomena in the way scientific knowledge can do. So science, on the other hand, is not dogmatic. It is based on reason and does not accept any idea or belief on faith. It subjects everything under its study to critical examination. It does not accept anything as sacred and unquestionable. It relies on the principle that the universe is governed by material law, which may be mechanical, electrical, chemical, or biological. Science seeks knowledge that is objective, certain, systematic, provable, and supported by evidence. This is done through a systematic method of observation, formulation of hypotheses, experimentation, organized theory construction, etc. It further overcomes the limitations of the senses through the use of instruments, diagrams, equations, and formal symbols. However, some have argued that science differs from non-science only in degree. It is pointed out, for example, that common sense has a certain scientific character. It recognizes certain basic laws of nature and acts on their basis. For example, traditional agriculture, which is based mainly on common sense, experience, recognizes the law governing soil fertility. On the other hand, science involves a certain degree of speculation and imagination, especially at the level of formulating hypotheses. Other features of science. In general, science is said to be objective, systematic, reliable, and so on. So, being objective means that all those who adopt the same method or procedure can prove or verify the claims or statements which the body of scientific knowledge contains. Being systematic means that all the various elements in a body of knowledge are locally related and each can be inferred from the other. For instance, you go to the library and get a hold of any science textbook. If you turn to the table of content, you will observe that the topics are arranged sequentially. Basic topics in biology such as the cell, its structures and functions are discussed before topics like the structure of liver, kidney, or brain. These latter organs are made up of cells, so you need to understand what the cell is before you understand the structure of the kidney or the liver. Science being reliable means that it can enable us to adequately and correctly explain, predict, and control any phenomenon in question. Thus, science differs from non-science in method and in the systematic character of its knowledge. For your exercise, please refer to the assessment section. In summary, science was defined as the following: as a body of knowledge, as a method of acquiring knowledge, as an institution. Science disciplines can be grouped into two main ways: formal science such as mathematics and logic, and empirical science comprising physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, etc. Science was also classified according to the classes or disciplines they deal with, such as natural or social sciences. Natural sciences, for example, deal with natural objects, while social sciences deal with society and social institutions. Sub-branches of natural sciences are physical sciences. Sub-branches of natural sciences are physical sciences such as physics, chemistry, biological sciences, microbiology, medical sciences, etc. In general, the purpose of science is to enable human beings to explain, predict, and control nature. Non-science disciplines are said to be subjective, unverifiable, non-factual, non-systematic, and non-quantifiable. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Thank you. See you soon.